Good morning, everyone. This is Randy from Snap Judgments. I today am starting a daily morning show called Coffee and Football, Snap Judgments. Now, this isn't ESPN and it's not hot take radio. This is about the stuff that actually decides games and builds your rosters. Now, just a little bit about who I am. My name is Randy. I've been a New England sports fan for 44 years. That's my whole life. I'm not an ex football player or anything like that. I'm not an ex coach. I'm a full time fan and a part time professional sports reporter. Early in my sports reporting career, I covered the Patriots, the Celtics, the Red Sox, the PC Friars, and the URI Rams before shifting almost entirely to football and the NFL draft. I've watched the games, I've watched the tape after, I've listened to scouts, analysts, coaches, and reporters, fans, and rumors. My job is to dig through it all, find out what actually matters, and bring it to you. I respect the fans. So that's the one big difference between me and a lot of the sports radio around here. And that's really why I want to start this show and run it on a daily basis. A lot of these shows, they barely talk about sports. They talk about drama. They talk about beef and nonsense. They make fans sit on hold for 30, 40, 50 minutes and cut them off a sentence in or halfway through their thought. They chase hot takes that sound loud but mean nothing. I'm not here to waste your time. If you show up, you matter. This is a room. It's not a stage for me. Outside of football, I'm just a guy. I care about single fathers, men's mental health, animals. I've got a 6-year-old German Shepherd you might hear from time to time, and 2 6-month-old kittens who are the terrorists of my household and do basically whatever they want. These things matter to me. They're real. When I talk about sports, I talk about people. I don't talk about the brands. I respect preparation. I respect the people who do the work. I care about who did the job, not who got on camera, not kind of the popular hot takes. So, why does this show exist? Well, everything I just told you, that's about me. But this show doesn't just exist because of me, it exists because of what's missing, right? Most sports coverage is loud, fast, and shallow. It's built for clicks, not for understanding. They talk about stars, they talk about drama, they talk about blame. They don't talk preparation, they don't talk process, and they don't talk to people who actually decide games. So this show exists for the fans who want more than noise. It exists for the people who actually watch, who notice the block, who see the adjustments, who care about why something worked, not just that it did. This show exists to slow the game down, to explain what mattered, to respect your time, to treat you like you're paying attention. It's not about being loud, it's not about being right. Now, we're going to air, my intention here right now is to air this show daily at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I intend to run for about an hour each day, and we're going to kind of play with that and see how it goes. If it kind of gains popularity and whatnot, we might extend those times and, or just try to be flexible and kind of react according to the fan. But, again, a lot of this is born out of my frustration with New England area sports radio. And I've always listened to that in the morning. I've been a long time listener of a lot of these stations around here. And I just want to provide an alternative where we talk about sports, Just a quick introduction into my coffee corner here. This, again, coffee and football. Anybody who knows me knows I'm always drinking a cup of coffee. I often have multiple different kinds of coffee around my house, different kinds for different parts of the day, different kinds, some for sharing, some for me. I have an espresso maker. I'll make up some espresso sometimes. This morning, I just went simple. Cup of Folgers coffee, a little International Delight French vanilla in there. It's very tasty stuff. Highly recommended. Not sponsored yet. We'll see. Anyway, enough about me. Enough about this show. Let's get back. Let's get to what we're actually here for, right? Which is to talk about football, particularly the Patriots. We're going to talk a little bit of off-season stuff. I'm in preparation mode, like hard preparation mode for the off season. Okay. I also want to mention the last time I tried to do a live stream on this, for some reason, it cut out for several minutes during the broadcast. If that happens again, then I'm going to have to explore different methods of doing this live stream. Right now, I'm using a StreamYard account and hoping that that's going to work. It's worked really well for the shorts. It's worked really well for pre-recorded videos, but the last live stream I did had some technical difficulties. So if that happens again, just kind of bear with me. I'll try to work through them and I'll get right back as soon as I can. And after the episode, I'll try to work through those long term if that's going to be a thing. So let's get into this. Okay. The Patriots absolutely rocked the Texans. This past weekend, watching the game, it was, man, the score, it felt a lot worse than the score actually read. They felt like they were up by 20 at points in time, and then you'd look and they were only up by 4, or 8 or 6 or something in that neighborhood. They struggled a bit offensively. Drake May, to me, I'm beginning to develop a little bit of a concern about kind of a Southern boy with smaller than average hands, struggling in these cold weather games, which is something that we have up here. It's definitely something he's going to have to get used to. He's going to have to practice a lot, probably practice with wet footballs, practice in the cold a lot, stuff like that. It's something that can be taught. And he's got a lot of things that can't be taught. If you know anything about me in the scouting process, I really trend towards players that have the things you cannot teach, right? If you're lacking on technique, if you're lacking on, hand usage, foot usage, positioning, things like that, those are the things that can be taught, right? I can't teach you to be a 4.25 speed guy. I can't teach you to be 6'6" and have 35.5-inch arms, but I can teach you basic technique. So that's kind of what I lean towards. So at any rate, this, Drake May, he can be taught these things, right? So I do have a little bit of a worry about kind of how Drake May has performed. He's had, I believe, 6 fumbles over the 2 games here at home. Overall, the Patriots, their 2 losses came at home. 3 losses, came at home, I believe, all of them. So he struggled a little bit at home too, right? He's an MVP candidate in his second season. This is his first season in the Josh McDaniels offense. It's incredibly impressive what he's done. There are still a few chinks in the armor, and I definitely think they're worth noting and keeping an eye on going forward. The defense just absolutely swarmed CJ Stroud and the receivers the entire game. They just reminded me of a pack of piranhas. At one point, I texted a friend and just said, this defense, when they smell blood in the water, oh man, it's over. And it really was like that. It was just a feeding frenzy from the secondary. CJ Stroud was under constant pressure. Despite that, I believe he was only sacked 1 time in the game. Should probably double check that stat, but that was a Levon Chason sack after Chason had already forced the interception, which turned into a pick 6 from Marcus Jones there. So despite the offensive line struggles, there was 1 sack in the game. Really, they were just forcing CJ Stroud to throw it quicker than he wanted to. He continued to throw it into, triple coverage, tight windows, just poorly placed balls. His accuracy was all over the place. And that, from what I understand from Texans fans, has been a little bit of an issue with him all season. So it's, certainly it was a good win for the Patriots. It just wasn't obviously the best offense that you could face. Now, we're moving ahead to the Patriots and Broncos game this upcoming season. And really, the big story there is, of course, the Bo Nix injury. He broke a bone in his ankle on one of the last plays of the game in overtime. And he's going to be out, for the rest of this season at very least. I think broken bone probably takes, like 2 months to heal, and then he'll rehab. He should be back for the start of the year, I would think. Not really my problem. But what is our problem right now is Jarrett Stidham. And that's a good problem to have because this guy is 1-3 record as an NFL starter. That's 2 starts with Vegas, 2 starts with Denver. He has 197 career pass attempts, 8 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, a 59.4% completion percentage, not even 60%. And he's thrown for just 1,422 yards total. He was, of course, originally drafted by New England, and then Josh McDaniels brought him out to Vegas when McDaniels was out there. He stayed there for a year and then moved over to Denver after McDaniels left. He has not thrown a pass in the NFL since 2023. Now, that's about 2 years and change, okay? The Patriots, they're going to have to play this team differently defensively, though. I've heard some talk in kind of sports radio circles and fans and so forth. Like the Patriots have to keep getting after him. They have to get after Jarrett Stidham just the way they did with Stroud and Herbert. Look, this Patriots team, this is not a team that's built to like line up across from you and just say, this is what we're going to do. We're going to exert our will because we're better than you. And that's just, you're going to have to deal with it. That's not what this team is, and that's not what it's ever been this season. From the very beginning of this season, Mike Vrabel got up there and he talked about, we want to take advantage of bad football. Okay. That was one of the first things he said here. And one of the most repeated statements that he's made here was, we want to take advantage of bad football. And that's what they've been doing for the past 2 weeks, okay? The Chargers and Texans offensive lines ranked 27th and 30th in the league. And so we rushed them. We tried to take advantage of bad football. Their offensive lines are playing bad football. We tried to take advantage of that, and we rushed and rushed and rushed and rushed and rushed. Now, that ended up well. That obviously worked out well. However, going into Denver is the first ranked offensive line in the league. They are built around and anchored by an all-pro left tackle in Garrett Bowles. They've got a lot of good talent, young talent even on that line. It is not the same as playing Houston, as playing the Chargers. Just isn't. Okay, so you have to play these guys differently. What I think that the Patriots are going to need to do to win this game is they're going to have to probably rush 4, maybe even 3 sometimes, right? And drop 7, 8 guys into coverage and make Jarrett Stidham and these receivers beat you. Okay, because he can't do it. That's not his game, right? He's not good at NFL quarterbacking. Okay. So you sit back and you make him be an NFL quarterback that has to pick apart what is becoming one of the premier secondaries in the league, built around 2 stud cornerbacks. Really, Carlton Davis, up until last week, has been slightly underwhelming this year. But last week stepped up in the biggest moment with 2 interceptions. And one of those was real nice too, man. When he got that knee down, just barely. And if you watch him, he does a lot of like pro stuff, right? A lot of little grabs and little physical work to try and get a receiver's hands or arms out of position, to try and get the better position on the ball as it's in the air. Just a lot of really small things that he does that if you pay attention to the details of how he's covering these receivers, it's really impressive sometimes, So he really stepped up last week. Then you've got Marcus Jones. there as a slot defender. He's a tiny, tiny little fireball that just has been so great for the Patriots this year. I mean, in every phase of the game, he comes in, he punt returns, and he's lethal there. Um, I believe even had has he done a couple kick? I'm gonna have to double check on that. He may solely be a punt returner. I'm gonna pull up his. Let's see, Marcus Jones kick returns. This is great radio, right? It's a dynamic punch returner, but yeah, no kick returners. My apologies. No kick returns, rather. Um, but yeah, carrying on. So you've got these guys in the backfield, Jalen Hawkins, Craig Woodson stepping up as a rookie with his first playoff interception last week. Just playing incredibly well. You sit back, you make Jarrett Stidham challenge those guys. And again, they not only can Jarrett Stidham not do it, but this is a team that they just don't really have the horses when it comes to receivers. Their receivers just haven't been great. Um, I mean, they have Cortland Sutton is their best receiver, and he was really quiet the last game for them. I don't think he caught his first pass until like the third or late in the third quarter. Now he did pile up a few after that, and it's not like he's not talented. He is. He's just, he's probably better number two receiver than he is a number one. And then you've got Troy Franklin, who is injured. Pat Bryant was a little bit of a later pick. I think he was late day two. A lot of people were surprised that he got taken that high, and he's had some production at times, but he's a guy. Marvin Mims Jr., Lil Jordan Humphrey, which is a ridiculous name. Lil Jordan, Lil apostrophe Jordan Humphrey. Is there a big Jordan Humphrey is what I need to know. I'm curious about this. Why do they call him Lil Jordan Humphrey? Okay. AI Online says that his older brother wanted him named Michael Jordan, but his mother didn't want two Michaels in the family because the brother's middle name was Michael. So she chose Lil Jordan as a unique tribute to the basketball legend. That certainly is interesting. All right. Yeah, anyway, he's a receiver for them. He's been in the league since 2019, 6'4", 225. In his career, he has 125 receptions for 1,622 yards, 10 touchdowns. He's rushed the ball 12 times in his career, 2 touchdowns there. So a little bit of a versatile weapon. But listen, they don't have the weaponry. They don't have the guns to really come out and throw the ball around, even if it wasn't just Jarrett Stidham. So the Patriots have to come back. They have to come out. They have to sit back in coverage, and they have to make Jarrett Stidham come out there and throw his first passes in over 2 years and throw them well against a exemplary defense that's really going to make him pay when he makes mistakes. Secondarily, they've got to avoid mistakes offensively. Okay, they need to spread the ball around. I think one of the biggest advantages of this Patriots offense, and it was an advantage of the old Patriots offense too, with Brady under McDaniels and all that, is that they rarely really had like a true number one receiver, the Randy Moss years aside. But beyond that, and look, the Randy Moss years, they didn't win Super Bowls, right? When they were winning Super Bowls, they usually didn't have like a true number one type receiver. Even Julian Edelman wasn't like a true number one type receiver. Okay. What they have is a bunch of guys that can catch, that are a team, that make up a good unit. And you're not entirely sure who they're going to focus on from week to week. So I think they spread the ball around and try to keep away from having Pat Surtain, who's the number one cornerback in Denver, potentially the number one cornerback in the league, be able to change the game too much. Okay, if you can spread the ball around, I mean, he can shut one guy down, but you've got 4 or 5 other receivers that you trust. So what? He's not a big problem. That's why cornerbacks kinda little little further down the, value chart, if you will, than something like a quarterback or left tackle, edge rusher, that sort of thing. Because they really can only impact the one receiver that they're covering. So you've gotta spread the ball around. And Denver's one weak point defensively has been slot receivers, where they're allowing 7 point, I didn't write that down. It was like 7.8 yards per attempt or something like that. I expect a heavy dose of Stephon Diggs and Pop Douglas. We saw a little bit of them in action last week. Diggs has been a leader for this team. This guy's been everything that you could have hoped that he would be, and also all the things that you didn't hope he was gonna be. I mean, from the beginning, right? He's a lot. He's a standard NFL wide receiver diva type of guy, right? He came in here in the summertime throwing bags of God knows what around with, models or Instagram girls or whatever they were on some boat down in Miami. And then all of a sudden he's on the field and back in action long before anybody really expected him to be, coming off that torn ACL last year. And he's comes out in that Bills game. That was really his coming out party for the year, right? Put up something like 130 yards. Um, and he's led this team. You see him on all these cut ups from the Patriots on the sidelines. It's him in the huddle talking about, we're going to battle and that sort of thing. He is the leader of this offense. And it's not just the receivers. It's the offensive line around him. It's all those guys that really have come to rely on him. But then, again, December, we get this news of the incident with the cook thing, which is just, I don't know what to make of it. I've heard people that you know believe that Diggs does have a temper. And I know that there I know well there was a I know from somewhere that I worked at that there was a kind of a double cook thing that night going on. So you could see in the text messages that, why do I want to pay for two cooks? And I know for a fact that that particular night that they did have a catering and also their private cook had showed up. So, I don't know what to make of that whole situation. I just know that Diggs has been everything that we thought and also everything that we feared he would be. Um, and I expect a heavy dose of him this week. Okay, he has not been to a Super Bowl. He wants to go to a Super Bowl. You can see the intensity in his eyes, in his play, in the way he's coming down with catches. I mean, it was that one catch last week just showed magnificent hands. Um, so yeah, a heavy dose of Steph Diggs, probably some Pop Douglas in there. It's going to be hard to hit those outside receivers with these cornerbacks, particularly on the Pat Surtain side. I also would expect to see some run game. Okay. And part of that's going to, fit right into the key matchups here. Number one on our key matchups is going to be Will Campbell versus Nick Bonito. If you know me at all, you have heard me talking about Will Campbell. I absolutely love him as a draft selection for the Patriots at fourth overall. He helped transform this team, this offense. He's been just great for this team, and he's going to be a great offensive lineman for a long time, hopefully, here in New England. I just think he's going to be a left guard. I don't think he's built for left tackle in the NFL. I understand he played well at the SEC in the SEC. But I also understand that he has a historically short wingspan. He just doesn't cover ground like people say it like it doesn't mean anything, right? But they are words and they do mean something, okay? And when you have a historically short wingspan, you're not covering as much ground, which means it's easier to get around you to go to the quarterback, okay? Now, people don't The real issue with him is not that people go around him. It's just that right now his athleticism allows him to make up for that lack of length, right? And he knows that he has a lack of length. He knows that he has that potential issue. And so he uses both his athleticism and his pre-snap stance, where he's kind of leaning or maybe not cheating, but leaning kind of to that side, preparing himself to pop out to that left side so that way he doesn't get beat to the lack of length due to the lack of length, right? And then the opposing player will feign that way and boom, pop inside. And now our left guard spot with Jared Wilson has been the absolute weak point of this line. And that's also Will Campbell's weak side, right? So he gets beat inside a lot and he doesn't have a guard there that, like, the guard there is already overwhelmed doing the things he's doing. And so it becomes a real issue. That's where he keeps getting beat. Um, Nick Bonito is a guy, explosive first step. He's a pass rushing specialist. And, he's not built in the same way that, like a Danielle Hunter or Will Anderson or whatever are. Like a Danielle Hunter is like a built in a lab, right? This guy, like, long arms, perfect frame, like, etc. So he's kind of built to really take advantage of all the weaknesses in Will Campbell's game. Nick Bonito is not the same way. He's a little bit undersized. He's extremely weak versus the run. That was kind of the book on him coming out of college. And even in college, teams would run right at him if he was on the field. And there was very little he could do to stop it. He's like 6'2", 243 or something in that neighborhood. So look, he might be able to quick his way around Will Campbell in the pass protection, but in the run game, he's going to get absolutely steamrolled. So I think that's going to be a key matchup, though. We've seen Will Campbell really get taken advantage of the past two games, and I just think it highlights the need to eventually move him into guard. So we'll talk about that more later in the season and perhaps touch on it later in the episode as well. Another key matchup here is Drake May versus the Denver pass defense. Denver pass defense is the best in the league, and Drake May is trying to become the first quarterback ever in NFL history to go through 3 of the top 5 defenses in one postseason. If he's able to do that, it's going to be both impressive and a little bit misleading, right? Because yes, we did survive the Chargers, and yes, we did survive the Texans, but offensively, we survived. Okay, he had that one really nice throw to Booty. He's had a couple really nice plays, but otherwise, I mean, he is dropping the ball left and right. His completion percentage has not been what it was during the regular season. And, you can hardly say that you've ridden this quarterback to victories, right? So he's going to become he is likely to become the first quarterback to run through 3 top 5 defenses, but he's not doing the real work, right? He is not doing the yeoman's work. Our defense is really stepping up and being better than theirs is. And he's just not being worse than the opposing quarterback. Not that he doesn't have the talent to do it, not that I hope he doesn't do it at some point someday, but that just hasn't been what's happened, right? The next key matchup in this game is going to be Kayvon Chaisson versus Mike McGlinchey. We're going to go to the other side of the ball there. Kayvon Chaisson, I've talked about him recently as the most undervalued and underrated free agent addition in the NFL this year. And I honestly believe that, okay? He signed a 1-year, $5 million contract, played 639 snaps for us, career high, had 7.5 sacks for us, career high. And then he turned around and in the playoffs, 2 sacks versus the Chargers, 1 sack versus the Texans, forced interception that turned into a pick 6 versus the Texans. This guy has been a problem for opposing offensive lines. He has been a problem. He's an explosive pass rusher. He gets past the tackle. He gets in there. He makes the hit. And he steps up in big games. I mean, these past 2 games has been the biggest games for the Patriots team in at least 5 or 6 years. And the biggest game for Caleb Von Chason, I think, probably in his career. And all he's done is step up. Okay. Mike McGlinchey has not been great this season. He's probably the weak point of what's a really good offensive line. So, the weak point of that offensive line could still probably start on most teams. But I think that's going to be an interesting matchup to watch. Now, next, the Patriots run defense versus RJ Harvey and J.K. Dobbins. Now, two Broncos backs, these guys could be the key to the AFC Championship. Dobbins leads Denver with 772 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns this season, and he's been practicing this week. There's a real good chance. I don't know about real good. Okay, maybe I'm qualifying it a little much, but there is a good chance that he could return for Sunday's game after having missed a lot of time with a foot injury. Now, he's missed a lot of time with injuries over his career as a whole. So even if he does return, who knows how long that return lasts. It's not like we're talking about, they're bringing Barry Sanders off the bench or something like that. This is a fine running back, but he's not going to save that game for them. It's just not how it's going to work. Then there's the rookie RJ Harvey. Now, this is a second-round pick out of the University of Central Florida who finished second on the team in rushing. And he's emerged as a versatile weapon. Okay, he's not just on the ground, but he is a pass catcher as well. His explosiveness and receiving ability give defenses another problem to solve. And Dobbins' return would give Denver a more balanced run game. Now, when you're talking about January football, multiple ways to move the ball, that could be a difference maker. I don't think that whether Dobbins comes back or not, that these running backs are going to be able to make up for Stidham at the quarterback position. I really don't. I don't think Denver has much of a chance in this game at all, to be honest. Now, this final key matchup that I'd like to talk about here is the Patriots' run defense versus those running backs. Sorry. That's what I am talking about. But the final point regarding that. No, the run defense, this was stifling earlier in the season. You remember it was like week 8 or 9, and they hadn't allowed a running back with more than 50 yards. And I think it was one at 50, and the next highest was at like 37 or something like that. Since then, they have given up some performances to some running backs, nothing game breaking, nothing wild, but 80, 90, 100 yards. And they struggled a bit, weeks 10 to week 17, basically, week 18, rather. They struggled a bit, right? Kyrie's Tonga went down to injury. He was a big part of the trench unit. And then Milton Williams also. So you're missing 2 of your top 3 defensive tackles. Of course, you're going to struggle in run defense. Of course. Okay. Corey Durden's a solid player. Jeremiah Farms is fine. There's a lot of guys, but they were really scraping the bottom of the barrel there on the defensive line for a minute. Anthony Jennings took some snaps at D tackle in a live game. Okay. Anthony Jennings is, 255, 260 maybe? He's an edge rusher. He was not built for the defensive line, but he was out there pushing and trying to play. All right. In these past 2 weeks, since the defensive line has gotten back to full health, they allowed just 31 rushing yards at 2.8 yards per rush to Kamani Vidal versus the Chargers, and then a combined 31 rushing yards total to Nick Chubb and Woody Marks in the Texans game, which is just 1.72 yards per attempt. So, excuse me. At the end of the day, my prediction is that the Patriots are going to win this game. I don't think that it's going to be like super close. I think it'll probably resemble in score and maybe a little bit in tempo and so forth. The Denver game, actually, maybe box score too. There's a chance that you might get to Stidham once or twice, but that offensive line is very good. It's not comparable to the Texans or Chargers at all. And I think that it's much more likely that you're going to get coverage sacks or just kind of trick him into mistakes that allow your defense to get takeaways. So I think that the score, why don't I do an actual score right now? Let's say the score is 28 to, I don't know, 12, 13, something like that. Let's say maybe they get into the end zone once. Maybe they kick a couple field goals. Um, and the Patriots score 2, 3 touchdowns on offense, and maybe they get one on special teams or on defense somehow. Uh, let's say Jared Stidham scores 3 to 4 picks, or he throws 3 to 4 picks, and the Patriots sack him once or twice. Um, yeah, and then I think they head to the Super Bowl where they are likely to face the Seattle Seahawks. Now, the Seahawks had a little bit of news of their own, and we'll just run through a couple of the stories over the past few days. Um, the Seahawks lost running back Zach Charbonnet. He's kind of like their short distance running back, their bruiser, their goal line guy. They lost him to a season-ending injury. He will not be playing this weekend against the Rams, nor will he be playing in the Super Bowl. We saw our AFC East rivals. Now, this is a little funny side note is that, 53 weeks after Mike Vrabel was hired, he became the longest tenured AFC East coach, given that the Dolphins had fired Mike McDaniels. And yesterday, the Buffalo Bills fired Sean McDermott. Aaron Glenn was hired like a week after Mike Vrabel, 2 weeks after Mike Vrabel, something like that. So Vrabel became the longest tenured AFC East head coach. Just barely a year over after being hired. So that was a fun little note. But anyway, Jeff Hafley is the guy's name. He was the Green Bay defensive coordinator most recently. And they filled their GM role also. I read the name. I didn't commit it to memory. So, I'll, talk more details on him if we ever decide we care. But look, that Dolphins team is they're pretty far away from competing. I've seen a lot of mock drafts this year that keep on throwing them a receiver, Mekhi Lemon or Jordan Tyson or some of that nature, which just kind of makes me sad for the Dolphins. Imagine going through all that and you come out at the other end and the most you got is, another receiver. I don't know. That would just seem very disappointing to me. So yeah, Jeff Hafley hired by the Dolphins. Bills now looking, not even just still looking. They just barely got rid of their coach. So now looking for a new head coach. There are quite a few rumors as to they're not even rumors. It's just, speculating options at this point in time. But the lead candidate out there seems to be Brian Dable, given his past experience with Josh Allen. And that does make sense. He's got to find a decent defensive coordinator. And, it's just, I don't know. It's puzzling because, you got Brandon Beane there that was not only kept on as the GM, but promoted. Go figure that out because most other people can't. So, anyway, who else was hired? Harbaugh was hired for the Giants role. I saw a post somewhere that said he was trying to get out of that contract because he didn't think Buffalo was going to open, which I doubt that. But it said he wanted to work with Josh Allen. Be interesting anyway. But he's there with the Giants, which is, it's funny. It's like I keep on picturing the job interview with John Harbaugh and they are walking through the Giants facility and then someone's like, all right, let's introduce you to the kids, and they open a door and there's Jackson Dart and Cam Scatteraboo just drinking beer, playing PlayStation, like frat house style. I don't know. That team cracks me up. I love watching them. They're fun to watch. I did not like Giants teams of the past, Eli Manning. Those guys, man, they ruined some dreams back in the day for us. But this iteration of the Giants, this version of the Giants team, they're fun, man. Cam Scatabo is a just all-time crash test dummy team. And Jackson Dart is they're like the Bash Brothers. So they're hard not to enjoy watching. And there was another oh Robert Saleh over to the Tennessee Titans, which is probably a good hire. Saleh is a good head coach. I didn't think he's definitely a good defensive mind. I didn't think he deserved to get fired from the Jets. I thought they should have kept him. I thought they kind of jumped the gun a little bit on that and should have maybe kept him, made him get a new offensive coordinator, something like that. Um, but yeah, I think he's going to do all right in Tennessee. I think he's going to be good, certainly for their defense. And we'll see kind of the things that they do there. I think that they still need a lot of things. You're right. They still need a lot on the roster. I mean, they need wide receiver talent. I'm pretty sure they need help right across the secondary. They need an edge rusher. They need all kinds of stuff there. So Salah's a good hire. Good step, first step in the right direction, I guess. All right. Um, Hold on one second. Sorry, just putting that down off camera there. All right. So real quick, we're going to just run through some kind of thoughts that I have on the Patriots' upcoming offseason and kind of what they need most because I've given this a lot of thought. I had left guard at the top of my needs list, if you will, for a while. Jared Wilson has absolutely been the weak point on this offensive line. I feel like he's getting beat consistently. He really highlighted to me earlier on in the season how bad the PFF grades had become. Um, they had him highly rated. They had him for no sacks given up, no pressures, all this sort of stuff. And it was like, man, are you even watching these games? Because he is terrible. He's getting beat regularly. There are a lot of communication issues between him and Campbell. And he has been very disappointing at the left guard position. He doesn't have the strength. He doesn't have the anchor. I do think he's a smart player. I think he's intelligent. I think he's quick thinking. I think he's very athletic. It's funny. One thing I noticed is that it seems like every time Drake May fumbles the ball, Jared Wilson is one of the first guys to dive at it, and he's recovered a couple of them. Very quick thinking. I think that he's going to make a great long-term center. I think he makes a lousy left guard. And I think that in the offseason, they really need to address that left guard position. Now, as I mentioned real briefly earlier, I think that Will Campbell's the long-term answer at the left guard position. I just don't know if he's going to be ready himself, right? I mean, if he comes out and Nick Benito burns him a couple times for sacks in this game, is he going to be ready then? Is he going to need to get worked in the Super Bowl as well? If you go through a postseason and you get worked as a left tackle for like 10, 12 sacks, man, you got to really be considering a position change yourself at that point in time. Get the coaching staff. So I guess it kind of depends on how this next game or two go, but I don't know if Vrabel's going to want to push him over right this offseason, right? Still his rookie season. There's still a lot of reasons, excuses, whatever you might call it, as to why he hasn't been great at the left tackle position. And some of those reasons, excuses, etc., offer kind of growth potential at the end, right? Like meaning that, what if he's just not good enough and needs to learn how to be better, sort of thing. What if that sort of stuff. But my reasoning is physical limitations. Okay. And that's not going to change. It's not going to get better. I think you immediately shift him over, but it depends on kind of him, right? Because you've got to get him on board there. He's not going to go be a great left guard if he doesn't want to be a left guard, if he still thinks he should be a left tackle. He might not be a great teammate to that guy who comes along and plays left tackle if he thinks that he should be playing that spot. So you've really got to be able to sit down with Campbell himself, and Campbell himself has to come to this realization just as well as the staff, coaching staff does. So again, depending on how these next two games go, if he continues to get embarrassed in the playoff stage like he has been, then he may very well come to this conclusion himself, and they try to solve the left tackle issue in the offseason. How do you do that? That's really the question, right? There's just not a lot of left tackle options out there. I mean, the free agent class is not good. Certainly at the left tackle position, it's not good. I'll tell you that. The draft, we're going to be picking 29, 30, 31, or 32, one of those four spots. So by that point in time, anybody really thinks is going to be like a day one left tackle starter, long gone off the board. Okay. You're talking about guys like maybe Caleb Tiernan, right? Who's tall, has same issues that Will Campbell does. Okay. He's an inch and a half taller than he is, but his arms are still very short. So same sorts of issues. And I'm not sure that he's everything in the run game that we kind of want our offensive line to be, because we are still trying to be a power, enforce your will, running type offensive line. So I did go through and I took a look at a few players in the offensive tackle class that I think could be answers. I'll go through them in depth more later on, but I do want to point one guy out that I think is a sneaky option, and that's Jedrick Wills Jr. Now, he last played in 24-25 for Cleveland. He played 5 games. Mike Vrabel was on the coaching staff there. I'm not sure if he got there before Wills really went down, or how much Wills was involved with the team while Vrabel was there, how much interaction they really would have had. But Vrabel was helping coach the offensive line there. And Wills has struggled with injuries throughout his career, right? He was a 10th overall pick out of Alabama in the 2022 draft. I just think he's very much more prototypical tackle build, right? He's a little shorter. He's 6'4", like about 310, 34.5-inch arms, long, athletic, got a relatively the same RAS score as a Will Campbell. Campbell is a little faster. Wills is a little quicker. So he's definitely got the tools to play left tackle. He's got experience playing left tackle, having started and played and whatnot in Cleveland. If he's healthy, he took this full year off to be healthy, to try and get his health back, et cetera. And then the intent was to, enter the free agent market this year, I guess. I think that he would be a cheap option on a prove it type deal, right? And so he definitely interests me as an option there. And I think we'll go, like I said, I think what we'll do is we'll go more individually through the options that I've talked about maybe tomorrow. We've already been on here 48 minutes. I don't want to go too far over an hour in the intro episode, but tomorrow morning, we're going to get up, we're going to talk free agents, we're going to talk who we need to retain, guys that from other teams that we need to look into, and then we'll probably get a little bit into the draft as well, talk about some targets from each round. I've got kind of my draft targets built out. I've got a draft list built out for the Patriots, a board specific to them, okay, where I'm ruling out. And what we'll have to do is one of these episodes, we're going to have to go through and talk about what the Patriots seem to like for this defensive scheme. Okay, the one thing that jumps out off the top of my head, one of the easiest things that jumps out off the top of my head is the defensive line. Okay, the Patriots don't have anybody on the roster between 261 pounds and 300 pounds. Okay, they do not have that like 3-4 DN type of guy who's like, 6'3", 6'4", 280. They don't have the smaller interior pass rusher types along the defensive line, like a 4-3 front D tackle that's maybe a little undersized. Think of Grayson Halton in this draft, but there's one I was thinking of that's more recent, place for Tampa. I don't remember. But point being is those aren't guys for the Patriots, right? That like 285, 290 D tackle range. They seem to like their defensive tackles 300 plus, their defensive ends 250 minus. Okay, meaning under 250 pounds. Now, there's a little room for flexibility there. I think a couple of their guys like 254, 255, and Elijah Ponder is 261. He's the one who's really struggling to get on the offense. So, or good to get on the field rather. And I don't think that's surprising. We saw them trade away Keon White for basically a bag of chips earlier in the season, and he's a talented player. He just did not fit this scheme. So we'll talk about a few things like that and go over some draft targets and some free agent targets on tomorrow's first morning episode of Coffee and Football, Snap Judgments. So yeah, tune in then tomorrow, 8 a.m., Snap Judgments. Subscribe to this channel. We'll be posting all kinds of content, especially now that we're like fully into draft season. I'll be posting shorts talking about prospects that I think the Patriots should target. I'll run down my Patriots specific draft board on one of these episodes. We'll, go round by round and talk in depth about some of these prospects that we could, or I hope to see in a Patriots uniform in the coming years. Listen, guys, I hope you enjoyed the show. I know got a couple people that hopped on there to view this live. I'm flattered and, really grateful to have folks popping by to chat football and, or listen to me chat football and Patriots. I am looking forward to your questions in the chat. I would we'll be happy to interact. And basically, as long as you're going to be here asking questions, I'll be here answering them. So hop on this stream with me next time. We're going to be doing this at least 5 days a week at 8 a.m. for an hour, give or take, and see how it goes. All right. Thanks for listening, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you soon.